One of my favorite movies is an Israeli movie that takes place during Sukkot. It's called Ushpizin. Ushpizin is the Aramaic word for guests. And it's customary on Sukkot to invite guests to come into our sukkah. We learn about the important quality of hachnasat orchim, of welcoming guests and hospitality during this period of time. And there's a custom that on each night during Sukkot, one would first invite Abraham and then Isaac and Jacob and our forebears, and then also to invite human guests to come in and to show them hospitality. In the movie Ushpizin, takes place primarily in Jerusalem, in the ultra-Orthodox neighborhood of Mea Shearim. We meet an ultra-Orthodox couple that is childless at the time, and they are what we call Baalei Tshuva, meaning that they weren't always Orthodox, but they became Orthodox and now are living in this ultra-Orthodox community. And if you've ever been to Jerusalem, you see Sukkot, in every little nook and cranny all over, and they live in a very small apartment in a crowded area, and there are lots of Sukkot everywhere. And as they're beginning to celebrate and getting excited about the beauty of the holiday, the man in the couple goes and buys a beautiful etrog and spends a lot of money, which he doesn't really quite have, but wants something special to do what's called hidur mitzvah, to beautify the mitzvah, to beautify his celebration. And then he and his wife get visited from some old friends, shall we say. Some old friends of his who are on the lam from a prison furlough. Yes, he didn't always have such an innocent past. It appears that the man and the couple ran with kind of a bad crowd, and a couple of his buddies ended up in prison. And they decide not to go back to prison after their furlough, and now they're going to be in trouble. So they got to find some place to go where nobody is going to suspect where they are. So they go to their old buddy who lives in the ultra-Orthodox neighborhood of Mea Shearim. And you can imagine what ensues. Of course, the couple, they want to welcome them because they know they need to fulfill the mitzvah, the sacred obligation of hospitality, of hachnasat orchim. So they're delighted that these old friends have come by, even if they're kind of shady characters. And what unfolds in the movie is at times hilarious as they're playing their contemporary music in this ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, frustrating as they're getting a little bit noisy, and there's also fury as well. But in the movie, as it's beginning to unfold, one thing that we learn is that the Ushpizin are more than just physical guests that arrive. That perhaps what this couple learns is that we always have to invite the guests of our past in with us as well, that they never quite go away, that we can't outrun our past, that whatever has happened to us comes into our present. At the same time, as we've just completed the celebration of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we don't believe that our past is determinative of our future. We need to come to grips with our past, to look at our past, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's who we have to be in the future, that we can grow. And so you can see the frustration of this couple bringing their past into their sukkah, knowing they're fulfilling this mitzvah, and it is very difficult, and they have to wrestle. But when we welcome our mistakes, when we welcome the things that we didn't do so wonderful in the past year, we can generate new life. We can generate a new beginning. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are about the past. But Sukkot is really about our preparing for the future. And this is why Sukkot is known as Zman Simchatenu, the time of a rejoicing. Because during this period of time, despite the fact that we're living in these fragile huts, it's a time of new possibility. That we've confronted and looked at our past, might have been unsavory, might have been embarrassing, might have been something we didn't want to deal with. but we're not stuck there. That's the wonderful message throughout our Jewish tradition, is that the past doesn't determine the future. And so the joy of Sukkot is really about the new possibilities of the future. That we welcome the past because we know that we can deal with it. We welcome the past, but we don't let it shape our future. That we are not stuck. And as we read in the Torah portion that Alana will chant for us tomorrow, we learn about God's compassion on this holiday. That after Moses goes back up the mountain, after he's broken the tablets and is very frustrated and angry and doesn't think that he could lead the people anymore, and he turns to God and he says, okay, I'm done, unless I can see your face. And God says, can't see my face and live. But you can see my essence, tuvi, my goodness. And so God puts Moses in the cleft of the rock, and God's essence passes by. And it says in the text that Moses sees God's back. And what is God's back? God's back are the qualities of God. Adonai, Adonai, the eternal, El Rachum V'Chanun, God who is gracious and merciful, who is slow to anger, who is compassionate and loving. That's who God is. And what it means to see and experience God's back is when we feel those qualities in the world, when we ourselves are slow to anger, when we ourselves are compassionate or somebody shows loving compassion to us, this is how we feel the presence of God in the world. And so these two prisoners who are on the lam, they're welcomed with love, with compassion. We don't know at the end of the movie if they change or grow. The movie doesn't address them. But we do know that this couple does have a transformative moment. And as the movie ends, they have a child. And for me, what this child symbolizes at the end is that there is new life, new possibility. That they were not stuck in their past. They had to look at it, they had to confront it, they had to be frustrated and angry. They also could laugh a little bit about what had happened. And ultimately, because they lived by these qualities of compassion and love and invited these difficult strangers in, they have new life and new possibility. May this be what Sukkot is for us, an opportunity to celebrate that joy, because we know that the future is open and clear to us, because the past doesn't determine what will be possible in the future. Amen.